What is a hoarder house? Have you ever been in a house that is so messy, it's overwhelming to the senses? Maybe you've had a friend or family member who doesn't know how to throw things away or never seems to give away their unneeded and unused possessions. They just stack and store up these excessive personal items until their house is so full of junk, people can barely walk from one room to the other. This is what we call a hoarder house, and if you've ever been inside a house like this, you probably understand why it has this name. The term hoarder house is used to describe a home that has fallen into disarray because the inhabitants have accumulated an overabundance of items, most of which hold no tangible worth. Because hoarder houses are packed with so much clutter, there may be only a footpath through many of the rooms. Living conditions are usually cramped in hoarder houses, with countertops, tables, stairways, and floors being used for storage instead of their intended purpose. In some cases, the owner's possession may even spill over to the front and back yards, garage, and vehicles, making a huge mess. A hoarder house can create some dangerous living conditions for its residents. If a fire occurs, it's more likely to spread quickly from the piles of combustible items throughout the home. The excessive clutter can also make it difficult if someone is trying to get out of the house, especially if the entrances and exits are blocked or if there are things that people can trip over while trying to run out of the house. Hoarder houses can also pose a danger to neighboring properties as well, because any combustible item left in the yard can cause a fire to spread. Hoarder houses can get pretty disgusting. Rodents, flies, and cockroaches are often attracted to hoarding conditions, especially if rotting food and feces are in and around the house. In many cases, the living conditions inside hoarder houses can be very unhealthy for the inhabitants, making it difficult for residents to perform basic housekeeping chores because of the clutter. In severe hoarder situations where maintenance has ceased, there can be unusable toilets, lice on bedding, chewed through electrical wires from rats, rotting food, fleas and rodent infestation, and human feces on the floors and walls. So with all the downsides of living in a hoarder house, why do so many people choose to hoard like this? There's no definitive conclusion as to why people do this, but there are a few common risk factors that seem to come into play. One is family history. Many hoarders have a family member who is also a hoarder. Another may be experiencing trauma. Certain life events may trigger hoarding behavior, like a death in the family or a house fire where all of their personal belongings were destroyed. Hoarding can also be a characteristic of mental disorder or illness. It's commonly associated with obsessive compulsive disorder, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and depression. People who hoard tend to believe all the items they own will be useful or valuable someday. They might argue that some items hold sentimental value or were too great of a bargain to part with. As you can imagine, hoarder houses can have a huge negative impact on the condition of a property, affecting its value and the perception of properties around it. For the most severe cases of hoarding, professional services that deal with hazardous waste removal can be hired to ensure that the home is properly cleaned of harmful contaminants such as bacteria, mold, and feces. These companies generally aren't cheap, but they can get the job done in an attempt to restore a property to its pre-hoarding condition. If you found this video interesting, check out this next one that describes the process of gentrification.